The joy drained from my face as I followed him off the court, my size 15 sneakers squeaking against the polished wood. Coach Williams closed the door behind us and didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You're too fat to compete at this level. The other coaches, the scouts, they won't take us seriously with you on the roster. You'll never make it in competitive basketball." The words hit me harder than any opponent ever had. I stood there, all 6 feet 2 inches of me, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. But this is how it started. Just 5 minutes earlier, I was on top of the world. The buzzer echoed through the gymnasium as I watched the ball leave my hands in slow motion. Swish. The crowd erupted, and for a moment, I felt like I was flying. 3 seconds left on the clock, and I had just sunk the game-winning shot for our college team. My teammates rushed toward me, but before I could celebrate, Coach Williams' voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Thompson, my office, now!" The joy drained from my face as I followed him off the court, my size 15 sneakers squeaking against the polished wood. At 400 pounds, I knew I didn't look like the typical basketball player, but I had just proven my worth on the court, hadn't I? Coach Williams closed the door behind us and didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Ava, you played well tonight, but we need to talk about your future on this team." My heart sank. I knew what was coming. "You're too fat to compete at this level. The other coaches, the scouts, they won't take us seriously with you on the roster. You'll never make it in competitive basketball." The words hit me harder than any opponent ever had. I stood there, all 6 feet 2 inches of me, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. 20 years old, and someone was telling me my dreams were over because of the number on a scale. "But coach, the decision is final, Thompson." I walked out of that office in a daze, the echoes of the crowd's cheers now feeling like a cruel joke. In the locker room, I caught my reflection in the mirror, my jersey stretched tight across my frame, sweat still glistening on my dark skin, my eyes filled with tears I refused to let fall. Back in my dorm room, I slumped onto my reinforced bed and stared at the walls covered with posters of my heroes, Shaq, Charles Barkley, players who had succeeded despite not fitting the typical mold. My trophies from high school lined the shelves, reminders of what I was capable of when given the chance. I grabbed a basketball from my closet and hurled it against the wall with all my frustration. It bounced back, and I caught it instinctively. "They won't define me," I said aloud to my empty room. "I'll make my own team." The idea hit me like lightning. If the traditional system wouldn't accept players like me, then I'd create a new system. One that valued skill over size, heart over height requirements, passion over physical perfection. For the next 3 weeks, I barely left my dorm room except for classes. My laptop became my new best friend as I taught myself programming through YouTube videos and online tutorials. My roommate Sarah thought I'd lost my mind. "Ava, what are you even building?" she asked, peering over my shoulder at lines of code. "An app," I replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. "A platform that connects basketball players of all sizes. Hoops for all." She shook her head. "A basketball team that accepts anyone? You're out of your mind." But I wasn't crazy. I was determined. Every rejection, every sideways glance I'd gotten on courts growing up, every time someone assumed I couldn't play because of my size, it all fueled me now. I tested the waters with a few friends from my computer science classes. Marcus, a skinny kid who'd always been cut from teams for being too small, immediately understood the vision. "This could actually work," he said, his eyes lighting up. "There are so many people who love basketball, but gave up because they didn't fit the mold." But for every Marcus, there was someone else who thought I was chasing an impossible dream. Even my own teammates from the college squad seemed skeptical when word got around about my project. "Come on, Ava," said Jennifer, our point guard. "Basketball is competitive for a reason. There have to be standards." "Standards based on what?" I shot back. "My shot percentage is higher than yours, and my assists per game are in the top 3 on the team. But somehow I'm not good enough." The doubt from others only made me work harder. I spent every free moment coding, designing the user interface, and planning how the team structure would work. 3 months later, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, I finally finished the beta version of Hoops for All. The app was simple but powerful. Users could create profiles, showcase their skills through video uploads, connect with other players in their area, and organize games in teams based on shared passion rather than physical requirements. I held my breath as I uploaded it to the App Store and shared the link on social media. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. People from across the country were signing up. Former high school players who'd been cut for being too short, women who'd been told they weren't aggressive enough, older players who still had game but were considered past their prime. The messages poured in. Finally, a place where I can play without being judged. I haven't touched a basketball in 5 years because I was embarrassed. Thank you for this. My daughter is going to love this. She's been too scared to try out for her school team. Within 2 months, I had enough local users to form our first official team. We started meeting at a community center downtown every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Our group was diverse in every sense. Marcus was there, of course, along with Patricia, a 45-year-old nurse who'd played college ball before having kids. Jerome, a guy in his 30s who'd never made his high school team, but had been practicing alone at courts for years. And Maria, a transgender woman who'd been excluded from organized sports her entire life. We called ourselves the underdogs, and we practiced like we had something to prove, because we did. I still struggled sometimes, my weight making certain movements challenging, but I was faster and more agile than people expected. My teammates learned to use our different body types and skill sets as advantages rather than limitations. We're not trying to play like them, I told the team during one of our sessions. We're going to play like us, and that's going to be our strength. 6 months after launching the app, something incredible happened. A local sports organization reached out with an invitation to participate in the regional community basketball tournament. It wasn't the NBA, but it was legitimate competition against established teams. The team met at the community center to discuss it. Some were excited, others were terrified. "Are we really ready for this?" asked Patricia, bouncing the ball nervously. "They're going to expect us to lose," added Jerome. I looked around at my teammates, this unlikely group of misfits who'd become my basketball family. "You're right," I said. "They do expect us to lose. They expect us to be a novelty, a feel-good story that falls apart when things get serious." I stood up, feeling every pound of my weight, but also feeling the strength I'd built over months of practice. "But we're not here to prove anything to them. We're here to prove it to ourselves. Every single one of us has been told we don't belong on a basketball court. This is our chance to show that they were wrong." The vote was unanimous. We were going to compete. Tournament day arrived gray and drizzling, matching my nervous energy. Our first opponent was the Metro Hawks, the 3-time defending champions. They looked exactly like what you'd expect from a championship team. Tall, athletic, uniformed in matching gear that probably cost more than my monthly rent. We walked onto the court in our mismatched practice jerseys and secondhand sneakers, and I could hear the whispers from the crowd. Some were cruel, others were curious, but all of them were watching us like we were an exhibition rather than competitors. The Hawks captain, a 6 feet 8 inches forward named Derek, actually laughed when he saw me during warm-ups. "Seriously?" he said to his teammates, loud enough for me to hear. "This is who we're playing?" I caught the ball from Marcus and took a practice shot from the 3-point line. Swish! Then another. Swish! By my 5th consecutive make, Derek had stopped laughing. The referee blew the whistle, and we were off. The Hawks came out aggressive, trying to intimidate us with their size and speed. They scored the first 6 points while we adjusted to the pace. But then something beautiful happened. Marcus, barely 5 feet 6 inches, slipped between 2 defenders and found me in the post. I spun around my defender, all 265 pounds of him, and laid it in soft off the glass. The crowd murmured in surprise. On the next possession, Patricia stripped the ball from their point guard and hit Jerome with a perfect outlet pass for an easy score. We were finding our rhythm. By halftime, we were only down by 3 points, 45-42. In our huddle, I could see the disbelief in my teammates' eyes. We were actually competing. "They're rattled," I told them. "They expected to blow us out in the first 10 minutes. Now they're in a real game, and they don't know how to handle it." The second half was a battle. Every possession mattered. I found myself in foul trouble midway through the 4th quarter and had to be careful, but my teammates stepped up. Maria hit a clutch 3-pointer with 2 minutes left. Jerome dove for loose balls like his life depended on it. With 30 seconds left, we were down by 1, 78-77. The Hawks had the ball, and we needed a stop. Patricia, who'd been studying their point guard all game, perfectly timed her steal attempt. The ball came loose, and Marcus scooped it up. He looked down court and saw me streaking toward the basket. The pass was perfect. I caught it in stride, but Derek was right behind me, certain he could block my shot. What he didn't account for was my strength. I went up strong, absorbed the contact, and still managed to bank the ball in as I fell to the ground. The referee's whistle blew. Foul, and won. I picked myself up off the floor, my teammates surrounding me, the crowd on its feet. At the free throw line, I bounced the ball 3 times, my ritual since high school, and released it with perfect arc. Swish, 80-78, underdogs. The Hawks had one last chance, but Jerome deflected their desperation three-pointer, and the buzzer sounded. We had won. The celebration was surreal. My teammates lifted me up, all 400 pounds of me, and the crowd that had been skeptical an hour earlier was now cheering wildly. We had done something that seemed impossible. We had beaten the champions. But as I held that first-place trophy, I realized the victory was about more than basketball. It was about proving that passion and determination could overcome prejudice and low expectations. The local news interviewed us afterward, and when they asked me what this win meant, I found myself thinking about that conversation with my college coach all those months ago. This isn't about revenge, I said into the camera. This is about showing everyone, including ourselves, that there's more than one way to be great at basketball. A year later, Hoops for All had over 50,000 users across the country. Teams were forming in cities I'd never been to, and the tournament we'd won had expanded into a national championship for community teams. I was back on my college campus for homecoming when I ran into Coach Williams outside the gymnasium. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me, probably remembering our last conversation. "Ava," he said, extending his hand. "I've been following your success. That app of yours, the team you built, it's impressive." I shook his hand, feeling no anger, just satisfaction. "Thank you, Coach. I wanted to apologize for—" "No need," I interrupted him. "You gave me exactly what I needed. The motivation to prove that basketball really is for everyone." He nodded, and we parted ways. I wasn't angry at him anymore. His rejection had led me to something bigger than I ever could have imagined. Today, I'm standing on a court in downtown Los Angeles, watching a pickup game between players from my app. There's a 52-year-old grandmother guarding a 19-year-old college dropout. A guy in a wheelchair is setting screens for a woman who's 7 months pregnant. A former NFL player who never made his high school basketball team is getting schooled by a kid who weighs maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. My phone buzzes constantly. New users signing up, teams organizing tournaments, sponsors wanting to support our mission. But what makes me proudest are the personal messages. "I made my first shot in 10 years yesterday. My son joined a team through your app and hasn't stopped smiling. I never thought I'd play organized basketball again. Thank you." Basketball is for everyone. I knew it when I was a kid shooting alone in my driveway. I knew it when Coach Williams told me I'd never make it. I knew it when I was coding until 3 a.m., building something from nothing. And now, watching this beautiful chaos of a pickup game, with players of every size, age, and background just loving the game we all share, I know it more than ever. The ball comes my way, and I catch it instinctively. Some things never change. I still love the feel of the leather in my hands, the sound of sneakers on concrete, the possibility that exists in every shot. I take one dribble, rise up and let it fly. Swoosh. Basketball is for everyone, and everyone includes me.